Hello and welcome once again to Musings by Danon. I've seen a lot of discussion on the internet recently about Mushuko Tensei. Several people are referring to it as the grandfather of Isekai. Many other people are trying to argue against that idea. I'm here to put my 2 cents in on the debate, and my take is that it is the grandfather of Isekai, in the same way that Lord of the Rings is the grandfather of modern fantasy. Before we dive into things, please like and subscribe for additional content. First of all, we should establish exactly what Isekai is and how it is different from another fantasy story. Isekai is a Japanese word that means different world or other world. The word has been adopted to designate a genre wherein a regular person from our Earth somehow ends up in another world and is usually unable to easily return home. This person can arrive at their new world via rebirth or reincarnation, most often courtesy of Truck-kun, a portal, trapped in a video game, summoned by magic, or numerous other means. The new world is usually a fantasy world, but it can be a virtual world, a parallel universe, or the far reaches of space. Our protagonist must then adapt to this new world, figuring out all the new rules. Oftentimes, the world is savage with a kill-or-be-killed nature, but not always. Famous examples of isekai anime are Sword Art Online, Overlord, No Game No Life, Log Horizon, That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, Gate, Re:Zero, Welcome to the Demon School Urumakun, The Rising of the Shield Hero, Konosuba, How Not to Summon a Demon Lord, Dot Hack Sign, Fushigi Yugi, Escaflowne, and Spirited Away. There are also reverse isekais which bring a character from a fantasy world to modern-day Earth, like Restaurant to Another World, The Devil is a Part-Timer, Recreators, and Welcome to Japan, Elf-san. Like all established genres, isekai makes use of tropes to help tell the story. If you're familiar with the tropes, the story is easier to get into. World building takes an episode or two rather than a season or two. An overpowered main character is a common trope in isekai, as well as gathering a harem of some sort. And in some isekai, that harem consists of women who are more powerful than the main character. Sometimes the characters are given a quest by a god or a goddess, often to slay the demon lord or save the world or something. But the single most common, and at the same time never talked about trope, is that of a Percival becoming a Lancelot. Allow me to explain. David and Lee Eddings were a fantasy writing couple most famous for their twin pentad series, The Belgariad and The Malorian. After writing these series, as well as 2 prequels, the fans wanted more. Fans wanted to know about the behind-the-scenes stuff, like the prophecies, and how they wrote their world. So the Eddings wrote the Riven Codex. The book is basically an appendix full of information on all the different races from the series, the currency used in each country, background on the prophecies, etc. But for our purposes, the most important part of the Riven Codex is in the prologue. Specifically, the list of things you need to start writing an epic fantasy. The list starts, naturally, with the hero. David and Lee Eddings explained that there are 4 types of heroes. This does not apply to every type of protagonist, of course, just heroes. The 4 types of heroes are Galahad, Gawain, Lancelot, and Percival. Galahad is pure, Gawain is loyal, Lancelot is the heavyweight champion of the world, and Percival is dumb, at least right at first. The Eddings go on to say that the advantage of a dumb hero is that in explaining things to them, you're also explaining things to your audience. Percival isn't exactly dumb, he's ignorant. He doesn't understand what's going on around him because everything is new, the same as our isekai protagonists. All their life experiences from their old world, whether they were a NEET, an office drone, a teenage shut-in, or a book-obsessed reading fanatic, count for nothing in the face of a kill-or-be-killed world with magic, monsters, gods, dragons, and demons. As I mentioned earlier, in many isekai, the main character is given some kind of cheat ability when they enter their new world. As they figure out how to take full advantage of this power and learn more about the world around them, these heroes quickly grow from being Percival into being Lancelot. This often happens within the first few episodes of an anime, but can take longer, depending on how much time the audience is given to know our hero, as well as the new world they find themselves in. So we now have our hero. He probably has an ability, along with a quest of some kind. They were probably some kind of NEET shut-in or whatever. They got hit by a truck and now they find themselves in another world for some reason. That's the basic formula for an isekai. With that in mind, the good and memorable isekai of the last few years don't follow that basic formula. They play with it, deconstruct it, parody it, Or just use it to establish the initial character setup and ignore completely the fact that they're telling an isekai story instead of a standard fantasy tale. Is the hero tsundere, Chinubio, a lucky idiot, a genius? Do they have to defeat some dark god to return home, or are they stuck there forever? Is there a twist on your isekai story? Did the main character return home after defeating the demon lord and maintain their power? Is your main character the defeated demon lord who fled to Tokyo? Was your hero brought over alone, with a couple classmates, or did the entire school get isekai'd? If your hero is trapped in a video game, is it a new game where everyone is starting off on the same foot? Or is it a game they've played for years and have intimate knowledge of the system, lore, rules, and classes in this game? Each of these is a unique take on basically the same trope. With all the ways you can play on the basic formula, it begs the question, what is their original source? What story is being deconstructed or parodied by all these other tales? The answer, of course, is Mushuko Tensei, or Jobless Reincarnation. By the time this video is out, part 1 of the season will have already aired, and people will be hoping the second part of season 1 will continue to be just as good as what we've already gotten. Despite all the hype around the series, people will still resist watching it because we've been inundated with isekai over the last several years. People want something new. What they don't realize is that Jobless Reincarnation is arguably the greatest isekai story ever written, and it does absolutely nothing new for the genre. So why should you be excited about this anime? The answer is the same reason you should read Lord of the Rings if you're a fan of fantasy. While Tolkien did not invent fantasy, he did popularize it, and is considered to be the grandfather of modern-day fantasy. Prior to Tolkien, the concept of an evil army consisting entirely of a different race was unheard of. Monsters weren't organized into fighting units. They were walking disasters that only great heroes of legend could defeat. Tolkien also had big scary monsters that only heroes could take down, but they were the leaders or special units. Successful contemporaries of Tolkien mostly consisted of children's authors. Lloyd Alexander, C.S. Lewis, T.H. White, Mary Norton, and E.B. White were all prolific. But during the 20th century, fantasy literature was mostly considered to be for children. Additionally, young adult literature was not taken seriously in the 20th century. With the exception of a few unending series, books were either written for children or for adults. Tolkien lit a fire in the publishing community. Suddenly, there was a huge demand for fantasy literature geared towards adults. From the 70s to the 90s, we got the likes of Terry Brooks, Michael Moorcock, Roger Zelazny, Anne Rice, Stephen R. Donaldson, Piers Anthony, David and Lee Eddings, Mary Stewart, Raymond E. Feist, Marion Zimmer Bradley, Terry Pratchett, Glenn Cook, David Gemmell, and Robert Jordan. All of these authors were directly influenced by Tolkien and rode a literary boom from Lord of the Rings to great success. Some of the stories these authors wrote, you can see the influence from Tolkien, while others went around him and pulled from the same sources he did. But it is impossible to deny the influence Lord of the Rings had on the publishing industry and the general public at large. Which brings us back to Isekai. Sword Art Online first appeared as a web novel in 2009, followed by Overlord in 2010, and Devil is a Part-Timer in 2011. By 2012, there were hundreds of web novels featuring Isekai heroes, and Mushoku Tensei was just another one, at least at first. Yes, we have your standard neat getting isekai'd via Truck-kun. Yes, we have a harem full of great and unique waifus. And he has a cheat ability. So what makes this so different than all the other hundreds of isekai? Why did this one stand out above all the others that were being published? First of all, Jobless Reincarnation isn't just some escapist, wish-fulfillment power fantasy like a lot of other isekai. Rudius isn't granted some gift from God when he's born. His cheat ability is having a fully functional adult brain in the body of an infant. He has all the intelligence of an adult, but the learning capacity of a toddler. Because of this, he's able to push the boundaries of what's possible. He starts casting intermediate tier magic as a 3-year-old toddler, and by age 5, he's able to cast Saint-ranked magic, a feat very few people in the world are ever able to achieve. Rudius does have another cheat ability, but revealing it would spoil a massive plot point. Secondly, the characters are all great. Real human beings with emotions, flaws, and quirks. Motivations that help you understand where each person is coming from. Characters that are more than just standard anime tropes. The tsundere is a tsundere because she grew up emulating her grandfather with his grandstanding, constant yelling, and near constant physical abuse of those beneath him. The kudere is a kudere because she grew up in a village where everyone was able to communicate psychically. The childhood friend is clingy and hyperfixated on the main character because not only did he save her from bullies when they first met, but also because he was the first person to treat her like she was human despite being a half-elf. Everyone has an actual backstory with fully justified reasons for how they came to be the way they are. Additionally, this is someone who was traumatized by extreme bullying. He was tied to a gate naked and left there for who knows how long. And now he has an extreme fear of going outside. Simply looking out a window causes him to experience PTSD. The first time Roxy, his teacher, takes him outside, he has a panic attack. This is not some fast-moving isekai where the character starts a new life as a teenager, gets his harem within the first couple episodes, and then defeats the first dungeon boss by the end of the first light novel. This is a slow burn that shows what life would be like if your baby had the mind of a 34-year-old degenerate NEET living in it. Of course he's going to have a lewd look in his eyes when he gets breastfed. It's his first time seeing breasts that aren't on a computer monitor. But it's not just the characters that make this story a the top-notch isekai. The world is full of different races, each with their own quirks, languages, cultures, and biologies. Beastkin who go into heat for a month and have to lock themselves away for their own protection. Demons who were cursed by the gods they served. Humans being manipulated by unseen forces. And gods who gave up their memories all in the name of revenge. Like Lord of the Rings, the isekai genre did not begin with jobless reincarnation. But without it, there might not even be an isekai genre today. Without the influence of jobless reincarnation, Rimuru would probably have never created the Nation of Tempest. Naofumi would never have saved Raftalia. Sora and Shiro would still be neats instead of rulers. Diablo would never have met a real girl, much less two. On the other hand, Subaru would never be so intimately familiar with pain and death, and Kazuha would probably still be at home playing video games, instead of surrounded by useless idiots. So it can't all be positive. Thanks for watching my video. Again, my name is Danon. If you want to start reading the light novel for Jobless Reincarnation, you could pick up volumes 1 through 10 on Bookwalker right now. There's a link in the description below. I also want to give a special shout out to my editor, Cute Stuff, who's been very patient with me. I hope to continue doing these videos on a variety of topics, but mostly about manga and light novels. Let me know if you have any requested videos in the comments below, and please like and subscribe for more content.